Hey, testing. Is this thing on? Yes, it is on because it's my microphone. Welcome back to Philosophy, and most importantly, welcome back to the Unknown Quarter, episode 11, Double Ones. I'm joined by Topher.
Can there be someone else here?
No. Oh, there could be, but we don't have enough good people that know
I
enough about
mean,
sports yet.
I love it here. Please don't shoot me.
You have 20 more episodes and your family is free.
And then on to today's point.
Today's point. So we're still on the footballs, and I snuck this in last episode that there was a situation
Do
that we were going to
talk about
cover
your
in the
foot
future.
fetish?
Athlete's foot.
Placing foot on balls? Yeah.
What I do in my own spare time is my own goddamn business. If I like to see muscular men slam against each other for a couple of hours on Sundays, and then that's my thing. This is 2020. We don't judge people anymore.
True.
For anything. So this is our oldest one to date so far, and I hope to have older ones in the future because the further back you go, the more weird shit happens in any sport. So for football, this was 1921, so we're almost at 100 years, not quite, but almost. In 1921, the American Professional Football Association was in its second season. And then they realized that name kind of sucked, so in next season, they would become the NFL. But we're the APFA.
Is this the origin story?
No.
Damn it.
No. Although interesting, a lot of these teams existed way before the NFL. Like the Cardinals, for the Arizona Cardinals, they were once the Chicago Cardinals, and they were founded like 1898. So like they're old as fuck, you know. But
damn,
and they existed far before the NFL did. And they played for like intermittent championships and stuff, but you know, like the one team we're talking about, Buffalo, they had the New York Championship or whatever, and they played other New York teams for it. It sounds kind of weird, but there was no league, so you just played games with anybody who wanted to play. So the Buffalo All-Americans were also known as the Buffalo All-Stars, the Buffalo Niagaras, the Buffalo Prospects, and after they were the All-Americans, they were the Bisons, the Rangers, and the Bisons again. And they only existed from 1915 to 1929. They had that many names. It's just so hard to pick a good name for your football team.
Well, that's why there's probably no new ones.
Oh, it's kind of easy. I guess they just went, well, fuck it. We're all Americans, so let's call ourselves the All Americans. Haha. I don't know why they called themselves that.
That's dumb.
It might have been that very specific reason. But they had an 8-0-2 record. So 8 wins, 0 losses, 2 ties, and looked to be league champions. The runner-up were the Chicago Staleys, who were known as the Staleys at the time. Of course, they're the Bears today, and they were the Bears in last week's episode. But this episode's so old, they're the Staleys, and they were named the Staleys because of the company that sponsored them, which was a company called Staley. They did like shipping and whatnot, stuff like that. That was back, and that's why the
name would
Packers,
have any correlation.
That's why the Packers have their name, because they got their name from the Acme Packing Company. So, and they were the ones that bought their uniforms and sponsored them. Oh. So, yeah, isn't that fun? Fun little factoid there. Except the Packers kept their name because it's catchy.
Fun fact.
Fun fact. Not really that fun, but I guess interesting if you're a nerd. The runner-up team, the Staleys, had a 7-1 mark. Their lone loss was a thrilling 7-6 Thanksgiving loss to Buffalo, the very same Buffalo All-Americans. So, and of course, at this time, championships were given to the team with the best record. So that's Buffalo. So no problems. There shouldn't be any more problems, but there is. There is. So of course, and as Topher puts his video thing on so I could see his lovely face. Chicago player owner and nowadays legendary NFL owner George Halas was not very happy by this. He was very mad. So I guess I don't know if he hatched this scheme the whole time, but he said, "All right, hey Buffalo, let's play a game in Chicago." We played one day after Buffalo's season finale against the Akron Pros. The Buffalo owner Frank McNeil agreed on the stipulation that this was an exhibition game and did not count towards the standings. And I'm telling you that for no particular reason because it will never come up ever again. Wink, wink.
Yes, foreshadowing. The
This
art of
game will not
storytelling.
count at all. We'll see. After I am so good at this. After a rough but victorious effort from Buffalo against the Pros, they took an overnight train to face the Staleys, and then they promptly lost to them 10-7. But it's an exhibition game, so who cares, right? It don't matter. We still got the championship, you know. But Mr. Halas, George Halas, who has the NFC Championship trophy named after him, or he was named after the trophy. I'll let you figure out which one is which. He sensed an opportunity, and he quickly scheduled 2 more games because at this time, remember, you could just schedule as many games as you wanted. So he just fuck it.
There wasn't really much regulation going on.
There was none. I mean, there was even less than last week's episode, which was in the 30s. This is 1921, so it's pretty much as rural as you can get in terms of football rules and stuff like that. So they played the 2 more games. They won 1 game and tied the second. So technically speaking, Buffalo and Chicago are now tied in the standings, but technically they weren't tied because the 1 game didn't count. But Halas, he got to work. He began to assert that the NFL title was his and began to persuade the other owners to agree. He based his claim around the belief that the second game Chicago and Buffalo played was more important. Also, the combined score of both games was 16-14 in Chicago's favor. Which, it's right, but it
gets true, even, but it's supposed to said that was an exhibition.
It was an exhibition game.
Yeah,
Buffalo owner Frank McNeil was probably flabbergasted at this point. He asserted that the game was exhibition and did not count as they agreed to. God damn it. It didn't count towards the official standings. So the league got in, the very young NFL, and said, all right, we're going to solve this issue in the dumbest way possible, as they've continued to do for the next 100 years up to this point. The league, what they did was they installed this new tiebreaker, and it's very dumb, but I'll explain it to you. It stated that a rematch counts more than the first matchup. Which is so, like, why even try to like what's the point of even trying that hard in the first game if there's no other? It's just it. That's just it. Your second game is more important.
But you have to agree to a rematch?
No, you don't. But if you happen to play a team twice in a season and that team beats you the second time, that game's the more important game.
Oh yeah, I know about that.
For no other particular reason. It's just more.
What's the point? Yeah, what's the point of the first game?
What's the point of even trying in the first game? Like divisions work nowadays where teams in divisions play each other twice. That would just throw the first. I would just treat the first matchup. I mean, I guess you still need the win regardless in the standings, but that's fucked. That's
yeah, it's fucked.
The ones. I mean, it probably. The thing is, George Halas had a lot of pull. I mean, he was one of the he was owner of the Bears at the time, the Staleys. Chicago, that was a big franchise, and they would only become bigger over the years. So he had a lot of pull within the NFL, I'm sure, which probably influenced that. And again, the league was in its second year, basically. So there was still a lot of shit to work out. So yeah, that's Buffalo gets screwed out of a title, and the Chicago Staleys were the 1921 NFL champions, even though it should have been Buffalo.
But that's not
and to
fair.
this day, and Buffalo residents to this day, well, of course it's not fair, but this was the 1920s, and nothing was fair for anybody, really. This was post World War One. You had people doing the Charleston. You had Prohibition was coming around, and you had bootleggers, and you had the Roaring '20s. Everybody was rich for the next 8 years, and then things went to shit pretty quickly.
You're a pretty bootleg guy.
Wow. Really?
And by that, I mean your prosthetic leg is just a big boot.
January 17th, 1920 was when Prohibition was enacted. So by the time this game was going, Prohibition had already... So you couldn't even drink alcohol to drown your sorrows after getting screwed out of a championship.
I mean, you could.
Yeah, I mean, he's an owner of a team. He probably had the resources to do it, but he was being illegal, I guess. The rule did not last that long as in the 1930s. Remember last week's episode, the first playoff game? That was basically when the rule was tossed out the window, which was a terrible rule. Really, I don't know. I still am just amazed at that. The second game counts more than the first game.
But that's just too clear cut for no reason.
They really weren't.
No reason.
Yeah.
There's so many points and factors that go into every game that the fact that would be the final decision. If there's a tie in any other way, there's other ways to decide it. It's not who won? Who won between them?
I mean, it might make the second game more competitive, but I mean, that's even modern day, there's so many nowadays. There's so many levels of tiebreakers. I mean, it would never ever come down to that. Especially nowadays when divisional opponents play, and every sport play each other multiple times a season, and the very last game they played is the most important one. So, of course, Frank McNeil, the owner of the Buffalo All-Americans, spent the rest of his days demanding the decision be overturned, but it never was. And I kind of think it. I mean, I guess there's no point now because the franchise itself doesn't exist anymore. But Chicago,
they should fight for that right.
I mean, he died in 1971 at age 61, but he only owned the team until 1923. So I guess it was just the fact that he got swindled at that point, that he was like, I want this reversed because I was kind of made to look. He got played. He got played basically, and I'm sure he probably felt awful at the time, like a goddamn fiddle.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's usually what a fiddle is. It's goddamn. That's why the devil plays it.
Oh,
the devil
wow!
In his fiddle.
Wow, that's
quite the connection. Philosophical and awful.
Just like you are philosophical and awful. So the Buffalo All-Americans never. This was the thing that probably hurt if you were a Buffalo All-American fan at the time. I don't know how many there could have been, but I'm sure there was a good amount. They never were that good again. They from 1918, 1921, they were a very good team and they were competitive. And after that, things just kind of took a turn for the worse. They dissolved. They were barely at 500 for the rest of their existence until 1929 when they folded. As for the Bears, well, that was their first of 9 titles and only 1 Super Bowl, of course. That was well over 30 years ago. So maybe in a way right now the Bears are suffering for what they did to a franchise that no longer exists. And that's it. That's the story.
Wow.
It is kind of, there's a lot of these early NFL where the championships were kind of swindled away from other teams and kind of there was just a lot more dirty dealings at the time.
Yeah, exactly. It was more about what the general believed instead of what was actually true and just. There was nothing solid.
There was just almost no like regulation.
And then like even when there was a solid like, hey, this doesn't count. Like no, it did. It's when you play like Smash Brothers and then you play for like like an easy game, so you make them play like a bad character, but then you're like, this is legit, and you're gonna lose, and he's like, what? Wait, no, and then like you just lose.
Sure, that's exactly
Yeah,
what it's
that's not
like.
a good comparison at all. But this is my life. These are the comparisons I make and the analogies that.
Yeah, yeah, that's just it's fascinating, and there's so many like just little instances of teams just getting one over on the other, and just owner, and that's kind of why you got to be a little bit thankful for the way things are today, even though owners still try to do things that they try to get past certain things, and we're still stuck with owners that are shitty and don't try to improve their teams. But at the very least, the league is now so old and established that stuff like this is a thing of the past. But it kind of goes with like, you know, teams at the time had more power. Like even for years, college football was more popular and more powerful than the NFL. It took a
Because
while. It
like
didn't take as
it was more considered like a casual like event. It wasn't on a big scale as it is.
But and another thing, a lot of these guys at the time, these NFL players, they had part-time jobs. Like they weren't just full-time football players.
Yeah.
You'd work a job and then you'd go home to your office job or your construction job. Like it wasn't back then. If you were like, I'm an NFL player, like I'm sure they probably thought it was like neat, but like it was like, oh, whatever, get back to work, start fucking putting that wall up, dick for brains or whatever they said back in those days.
You need I don't know what they said, but you bozo.
Bozo, you slob, you lug, get over here.
Wait,
Give
what
you
did
the
they
old
say in the
one
Great
too.
Gatsby?
Basically everything in the Great Gatsby is what was said here.
Yeah.
Even the although sometimes you get great nicknames out of that. So for example, the Chuck Bednarik on the Eagles, one of the greatest Eagles players of all time. His jersey's retired. He's in the Hall of Fame. Blah blah blah. He worked a concrete job after he'd play for the Eagles, and then he'd go like mix concrete and all that and sell concrete. And he got the nickname Concrete Charlie, which is
Sounds
because
like
he
a
was also a
monster.
lot. Yeah, he was a linebacker, so he would deliver concrete crushing hits. So everybody thought he got that name because of like the way he played. It's because he legit like sold concrete.
It's but it's legit because he made the ground you stand on. They
And
say he walks all over people, but you walk all over him. Well, his product.
he also
I'm
played on
trying to
both
say
sides
it.
of the ball. He played linebacker and he played center.
Damn, double position. Tough.
Double duty. Double duty.
Double duty.
Don't see that anymore. It's funny. The concrete thing is actually sort of a sneak peek into next week's episode as we
That's
dive into the history of a very
that.
famous
Is that
Philadelphia
concrete
stadium.
in it? Like, is that
It's
was
concrete. I've already
okay?
got it planned out. It is
Okay,
concrete.
good.
Super concrete. You will not
Ooh.
believe how concrete. The best concrete. Some say maybe the best ever. That's it. What'd you think? Any passing comments before we wrap it up?
No. I just wish I knew who Concrete Charlie was. He seems like he's like my favorite character in the whole story.
Well, he played like about
Is he
40
alive?
years after this story. No, he died a couple of years ago.
Damn.
Sadly, he was
Did
very
they
old.
did they did they put him in Concrete?
I
I
guess
think that's
technically
what
speaking,
Concrete Charlie would have wanted.
I think like technically, I mean they do put you in a concrete like burial, like when they bury you in the ground, they usually put you in like a concrete holding, which I think makes sure your bodily fluids and anything else doesn't leak into the water. So they put you in a concrete thing. It also protects against zombies, which is a good thing.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
so yeah, I think
He
technically
started the
he did.
tradition.
Unless he was cremated. I'm not really sure what they did with his body, but
Dude,
he died 2015. He played in the 50. He played from the 40s to the 60s, so quite a while after the story took place. But
dude, they mixed them into the concrete. All
that'd be
concrete
amazing.
today has a small percentage of concrete
You
Charlie.
think this was a pod?
To this day.
Maybe I should make a pod about Concrete Charlie. He was a very interesting man. And an Eagles legend. But that is it for this week's episode. A little bit shorter than last week's, but because last week I'm trying not to get them over like 40 minutes long, 30 minutes. I mean,
Of course, yeah.
that's just how it goes sometimes. Sometimes the people gotta have the good stories. They gotta have the good stories, man. Know your history, or be doomed to repeat it.
What?
So we'll be back a week after next week for a brand new spanking new episode. Halloween's coming up, so happy Halloween. Maybe I'll come up with a scary. Actually, yeah, next week's episode is pretty good. Halloween, it's not Halloween related, but it has some horror tales connected to it in a way.
Yo,
but you'll find out that's
Charlie better buried somebody.
He
came back.
There's a very famous hit that he played where he like fucking bulldozed the guy on the Giants and like he crushed him, and he almost died from it, but he didn't. And he went on to become a very famous NFL broadcaster. But aside from that, happy Halloween, people. We'll be back. Like I said, next episode 12, will be up hopefully on time. Check us out on our social medias at Philosophy Pod on Twitter, Philosophy Pod on Facebook. We are on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Anchor, which is the new one. I think I got it all there. And of course, YouTube. You can share with your buddies. You can give us a nice rating, a nice comment if you liked it. If you didn't like it, you can still leave a comment. Just don't be mean. And that's it. That's it. We'll see you next time. Salutations. Goodbye.
Peace, love, and tranquility. Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated.